A man stands in the dust of an open courtyard, surrounded by the smell of roasting meat and the rhythmic thumping of drums. And that father's embrace is a staggering, beautiful moment. But if you look closer at who is actually standing in the crowd listening to this is not a story of one lost son. It is a story of two. The Pharisees in the crowd are suddenly very quiet. The trap has sprung. Jesus has just taken their flawless record of rule-keeping and exposed it as a highly sophisticated form of rebellion. In the ancient Middle East, a patriarch, faced with this kind of public, humiliating disrespect from his oldest son, has only one socially acceptable option. He must assert his authority. He must defend his honor. He must issue a command and force the boy inside. But the father in the shadows does not pull rank. He does not issue a command. He opens his mouth, and he uses a word that shatters the ancient social order completely. The detail that changes how you read the end of this parable is buried in the posture of the father. Look at Luke chapter 15. Verse 18. The older brother is furious. He refuses to cross the threshold. The text says, "Therefore his father came out and entreated him." That English word, entreated, or pleaded, feels polite. It feels like a mild suggestion. But the Greek word, sitting beneath it, carries a staggering amount of emotional and theological weight. At the cultural dynamite Jesus is lighting and tossing into the room, you realize the younger brother is just a decoy. The word Luke uses here is the Greek verb parakaleo. It is a compound word. Para means beside, and kaleo means to call. Literally, it means to call someone to your side. But as it moved through the first century world, its range of meaning deepened. It became the word used for urging, for comforting, for desperate begging. It is the exact same verb used in Mark chapter 1, when a man covered in leprosy falls on his face in the dirt and begs Jesus to make him clean. It is the word used in Matthew 8, when a terrified Roman centurion pleads for his paralyzed servant. It is the vocabulary of the desperate. And its noun form, parakletos, is the exact word Jesus will later use to describe the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, the Advocate, the one who comes alongside you in the dark. That root changes everything about the scene in the courtyard. In the strict honor-shame culture of the ancient Near East, a father whose authority is being publicly mocked by an insolent son is expected to issue a harsh command. He is expected to draw a line in the sand. He has the legal right to strike the boy for this kind of disrespect. The father does not give an order. He begs. This is not the voice of a master demanding compliance. The real target of the story is the man standing in the dark. The central question of Luke 15 is not how the rebel finds his way home. It is the plea of a father pursuing a son. The patriarch of the estate lowers his own dignity for the second time in one night. Earlier that afternoon, he hiked up his robes and ran down a public dirt road to absorb the shame of the younger rebel. Now, he steps out into the cold night air, leaving the warmth and the loud music of the feast to absorb the fury of the older brother. He stands in the dust, taking a barrage of bitter, legalistic accusations. And instead of pulling rank, he simply uses parakaleo. He calls his boy to his side. "Son," the father says in verse 31, "you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours." He does not debate the ledger. He does not point out the older brother's hypocrisy. He does not argue about the young goat. He simply reminds him of the bios, the life they already share. He reminds him that you cannot earn what you already own. The Pharisees standing in the crowd around Jesus are listening to this, and the realization is hitting them like a physical blow. Jesus is not just telling a story about a fictional father. He is explaining his own actions. He is telling the religious elite that by eating with tax collectors, he is throwing a feast for the dead who have come back to life. It is this: what do you do with a son who is lost inside his own father's house? And by telling them this parable, he is coming out into the dark to plead with them, to join the party. But the detail that haunts this entire chapter is what happens next. The father speaks his final words. The music thumps inside the house. The torches flicker against the stone walls. The older brother stands in the courtyard, The cold night air presses against his skin. The smell of roasted meat drifts through the open gate. He has a choice to make. He can drop his anger. He can unclench his fists. He can walk through the door. Or he can stay in the dark. The father waits. The older brother stares. The tension builds. And then, Jesus stops talking. The parable simply ends. There is no resolution. There is no final verse. There is no neat ribbon tied around the narrative. The camera just freezes on the older brother standing outside the house. We do not know if he goes inside. We do not know if he accepts the grace. We do not know if he embraces the rebel. It is not a conclusion. It is a cliffhanger. Jesus leaves the story entirely unresolved. And he does it on purpose. He is looking directly at the Pharisees. Jesus was not just spinning a heartwarming tale about grace. He was diagnosing a disease. He was naming a spiritual condition that is completely blind. He is looking at the scribes. He is looking at the men with perfect ledgers and clean hands. They are the older brother. They are standing in the dark. They are furious at the grace being handed to the tax collectors sitting right next to them. The story stops because the ending has not been written yet. The pen has just been handed to the crowd. Jesus is asking them a terrifying question. The feast is happening right now. The outcasts are coming home. The kingdom of God is throwing a party for the dead who have suddenly started breathing again. Are you going to come inside? Are you going to drop your ledger? Or are you going to stand in the dark forever? The silence and the dust must have been deafening. You could hear the wind blow through the crowd. You could see the realization washing over the faces of the religious elite. They thought they were the heroes. They thought they were the faithful ones. They were not the heroes. They were the lost. Their obedience was just a mask. Their morality was just a currency. Their perfect rule-keeping was the very thing keeping them out of the Father's house. Rebellion keeps you away from God by telling you to run. Religion keeps you away from God by telling you that you do not need Him, to its own sickness, a condition that kills more joy, divides more communities, and builds more walls than outright rebellion ever could. It tells you that you can earn your seat at the table. It tells you that if you work hard enough, sweat long enough, and bleed enough in the fields, the Father owes you a goat. But the Father does not owe anyone anything. The Father gives because He is the Father. He divides the bios. He runs down the road. He comes out into the dark. The younger son was lost in a pig pen. The older son was lost in the courtyard. One was miles away. One was inches from the door. Both were equally dead. Both were equally missing. And the absolute tragedy of the older brother is that he does not even know he is lost. He has the vocabulary of a slave. He has the anger of an orphan. He has the heart of a mercenary. But he genuinely believes he is the model son. But this ancient cliffhanger does not just stay in the first century dust. It does not stay trapped in a conversation with the Pharisees. Because that older brother did not disappear when the crowd walked away. He just changed his clothes. The older brother did not disappear when the Pharisees walked away. He just changed his clothes. He is sitting in the sanctuary on Sunday morning. He is volunteering for the committee in a brightly lit basement that smells of stale coffee and damp carpet. The older brother represents an entirely different kind of lostness. A lostness that looks exactly like obedience. This parable is not an invitation to the broken. He is tithing exactly his 10%, keeping his hands impeccably clean, and carrying an exhausting, invisible weight in his chest. We are a species obsessed with transaction. We want the universe to operate like a cosmic vending machine. We put in our moral coins. We pull the heavy lever of obedience. And we expect the blessing to drop into the tray. We build a phantom ledger. We record every late night, every temptation resisted, every right choice made when it was difficult. We stack those invisible pages in our minds, binding them with the heavy leather of our own self-righteousness. We carry them in our posture, in the stiff set of our shoulders, in the exhaustion behind our eyes, and we wait for payday. But when the machine breaks, when the blessing is handed to the rebel who cut the line, who smells of bad decisions and borrowed money, the phantom ledger is exposed. When the medical diagnosis hits anyway, when the bank account drains anyway, when the prodigal sibling gets the easy life while you are sweating in the summer heat of the fields. The ledger becomes a weapon. Bitterness blooms in the dark. The older brother's anger is not a sudden loss of temper. It is the terrifying exposure of his true religion. It is a warning to the faithful. To feel the absolute shock of this story, you cannot start in the pig pen. You cannot even start. He does not want the Father. He wants the Father's things, and he believes his pristine behavior is the currency required to buy them. This is why the older brother is actually in far more spiritual danger than the younger rebel. The rebel in the pig pen knows he is starving. His stomach physically aches. His ribs show through his skin. He can feel the dried mud cracking on his hands. He knows exactly how desperate he is. But the man sitting at the Father's table, chewing the bread of the estate while secretly despising the Father's heart, feels completely full. You cannot save a man who does not know he is lost. You cannot heal a patient who uses his own perfect attendance record to prove he is not sick. Religion without relationship is just a highly sophisticated form of wage labor. It is douluo. It is slavery, dressed up in Sunday clothes. The tragedy is that the older brother is starving to death at a banquet. He is living like a hired hand on an estate that he already owns. All that is mine is yours, the father told him, but the older brother cannot hear it, because the sound of his own ledger pages turning is too loud in his ears. Yet, the parable does not end with condemnation. It ends with an invitation hanging in the cold night air, because the beauty of Luke 15 is not in the Father's embrace. You have to start with the dirt beneath Jesus' feet and the faces staring back at him as he opens his mouth. Just that the Father runs down the dirt road for the rebel. It is what he does for the man who refuses to come inside. A younger son demanded the bios to leave the property, and the father tore his own life in half to let him go. A rebel woke up, starving in a distant pig pen, and a patriarch hiked up his robes to sprint down a public dirt road. A rehearsed apology was spoken in the mud, and a signet ring of sonship interrupted it completely. A faithful worker stood furiously in the dark, and the master of the house left the warmth of the feast to find him. An older brother used the legal vocabulary of a slave, and a father pleaded with the desperate intimacy of parakaleo. A bitter heir demanded a single goat for his friends, and a patient dad offered him the entire estate. The religious elite muttered about a rabbi eating with human garbage, and Jesus handed them the pen to write their own ending. Same house, same father, but maybe the part that stays with me most is the darkness. The image of the father stepping out into the cold night air to find his oldest boy. He does not yell. He does not pull rank to speak, because this entire story is a retaliation. It is a direct response to a complaint that has just rippled through the crowd. He just stands there in the dust, absorbing the bitter accusations of a son who is holding a perfect attendance record like a weapon. He leaves the party twice, in one chapter, once for the boy smelling of swine, and once for the man smelling of sweat and self-righteousness. If you are in a season where your obedience feels more like exhaustion than joy, this ancient cliffhanger is asking you to look at your hands. If you are keeping a phantom ledger in your chest, quietly tracking what God owes you for your loyalty, if you have been treating the creator of the universe like a boss to be appeased rather than a dad to be loved, if you are standing in the dark, furiously angry at the grace given to someone else because you feel like you earned it more, drop the ledger. The Father does not want your perfect attendance record. He does not need you to punch a spiritual time card. You cannot purchase what has already been given to you. The door is open. The music is playing. And he is out in the dark, begging you to come inside. And may the God who pursues us into the far country and pleads with us in the cold courtyard give you the courage to finally drop your chains and walk into the house. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this. He is covered in the sweat of the fields, his hands calloused from years of unbroken labor. Luke chapter 15 opens with a collision. Two completely different groups of people are crowding around a 30-year-old rabbi. The contrast is sharp, with someone who is exhausted from trying to earn a seat at a table they already own. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. It is visual. It is loud. Group 1 is the outcasts, the tax collectors, the sinners, the people whose money carries the scent of Roman extortion, the men and women who are categorically barred from the synagogue. They are leaning in. They are listening. Group 2 is the establishment, the Pharisees, the scribes, the men with perfectly clean hands and impeccably kept ledgers. They are standing back. They are watching. They are muttering under their breath. Their complaint is recorded in verse 2. This man receives sinners and eats with them. It is a scandal. In the ancient Near East, sharing a meal is not just a transfer of calories. It is an endorsement. It is an intimate covenant of peace. And the religious elite cannot stomach the sight of a holy teacher breaking bread with human garbage. They complain. Jesus responds. He does not defend himself with a theological argument. He does not quote a prophet. He simply tells 3 stories in rapid succession. A trilogy of the lost. A shepherd loses a sheep. He leaves the 99 in the open country. He searches the ravines. He finds it. He throws a party. A woman loses a silver coin. She lights a lamp. She sweeps the dirt floor in the dark. She finds it. She throws a party. Listening to a party he was not invited to. He can hear the laughter. He can hear the musicians. And he is furious. The rhythm is established. The crowd knows how this works. Something is lost. Someone searches. It is found. A feast begins. The pattern is hypnotic. So when Jesus starts the 3rd story, a certain man had 2 sons. The Pharisees think they know exactly where this is going. They assume the younger son is the tax collector. They assume the older son is the faithful Pharisee. And they assume the story will end with the rebel getting his rightful punishment. They are half right. The Pharisees are not the background characters in this chapter. They are the crosshairs. The first 2 stories were just the setup. The 3rd story is the trap. Jesus is about to hijack their entire religious framework. What does it mean to be lost? In the first 2 parables, lostness is obvious. A sheep wandering in the wilderness is clearly in danger. A coin missing in the shadows is clearly out of place. That is the kind of lostness the Pharisees understand. Rule breakers, Sabbath violators, temple defilers. But Jesus is introducing a terrifying new category. What if you can be lost without ever leaving the property? What if you can be completely separated from the Father's heart while perfectly obeying the Father's rules? The parable is not a map for the prodigals. It is a mirror for the proud. But before Jesus can flip that mirror and expose the older brother, he has to set the stage. Inside the brightly lit house, a younger brother who squandered half a family's wealth on prostitutes and absolute foolishness is wearing a clean robe and a gold ring. He has to tell a story about a departure, an insult so deep, it would have made the crowd of listeners audibly gasp in the dust. A younger son stands before his father in the main room of a 1st-century stone house. He does not ask for a blessing. He does not ask for a trade route to manage. He looks at his father, a man still breathing, still working, and asks for his share of the inheritance. In the ancient Middle East, an inheritance is not a liquid bank account that can be transferred across borders. It is land. It is flocks of sheep grazing on the hillside. It is the very soil the family's survival depends on. To ask for the estate while the patriarch is still alive is an act of profound violence. It is a public, humiliating declaration. The son is looking at his father and saying, "I wish you were dead." The crowd standing around Jesus, the Pharisees. The scribes know exactly what should happen next. The father should strike the boy. He should drag him to the elders at the city gate and drive him out of the village with stones. The father does not strike him. He divides the estate. But the text reveals a detail in the original language that makes this moment physically painful. Outside, the older brother, who did everything right, is standing in the dark, his jaw clenched, refusing to take a single step toward the door. Verse 12 says, "And he divided unto them his living." The Greek word Luke uses here for living is not ousia, which means property or wealth. It is bios. It is the word for biological life itself. The father is not handing over a ledger. He is tearing his own life in half. The division of the bios is a spectacle. It means selling off ancestral land. It means dividing herds of bleeding sheep in the dust. It means the entire village watching as the younger son liquidates his father's dignity, packs his bags, and vanishes down the road toward a far country. You know what happens in the far country. The sky stops raining. The ground cracks open in famine. The bios is squandered on wild living, and the boy ends up in the mud of a Gentile pig pen, smelling of swine, starving to death. He rehearses a desperate apology. He begins the long walk back. And before he even reaches the gate, the father runs. In a culture where prominent men never run, the father hikes up his robes, exposes his bare legs, and sprints down the dirt road. He throws his arms around a son covered in pig filth. He kisses him. He interrupts the rehearsed apology. He orders a clean robe, a signet ring, and sandals for his feet. He slaughters the fatted calf. The smell of roasting meat fills the air. Torches are lit. The drums begin to beat. The lost has been found. It is the most famous story Jesus ever told. The prodigal son. You have heard it 100 times, and the house is vibrating with joy. The Pharisees in the crowd are waiting for the story to end right here. But the music is just background noise, because while the younger son is dancing inside, another figure is walking in from the fields, and the word he uses to describe his own life will completely redefine what it means to be a part of this family. The camera of Luke's gospel pans away from the dancing in the courtyard and moves out into the quiet of the agricultural fields. The older brother is walking home. As he approaches the property line, the heavy, rhythmic thumping of music spills out into the night air. He calls a servant over. He asks what is happening, and when he hears that his disgraced brother has returned and the fatted calf has been slaughtered, something inside him snaps. He refuses to go in. He stands in the dark, his fists clenched, vibrating with a cold, righteous anger. And just like he did for the younger rebel, the father leaves the party. He walks out into the night to find his oldest son, but instead of a tearful reunion, he is met with a bitter, explosive accusation. Read Luke chapter 15, verse 18. The older brother looks at the man who gave him everything and says, "Look, for so many years I have served you. It has been preached in every language, painted on cathedral walls, and used as the altar call for 1,000,000 Sunday services, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might celebrate with my friends." It sounds like a defense of his loyalty, but the word he chooses reveals a completely shattered relationship. The word your English Bible translates as served is the Greek verb douluo. It is an incredibly specific, legally loaded term. It comes from the root noun doulos, which means a bondservant or a slave. Douluo does not mean to help out around the family business. It does not mean to honor your parents or assist with the chores. It means to execute the orders of a master under the strict conditions of bondage. It is the exact same word the Apostle Paul uses in Romans 6 when he describes being enslaved to sin. That root changes everything about how we read this man's heart. This man is standing on land that he currently owns. When the father divided the bios earlier in the chapter, the older brother received his double portion. He is the heir. He is the master of the estate. And yet, he looks at his father and uses the vocabulary of a slave. If realizing that perfect obedience can sometimes just be another form of bondage is shifting how you read this story, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Most people assume this parable is a story about the younger brother. They assume the climax of the narrative is the moment, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the father stands in the darkness, listening to this furious confession. The older brother has never left the property, but he is miles away from the father's heart. He does not view his father as a dad, to be loved. He views him as a boss to be appeased. He has spent his entire life punching a spiritual time card, sweating in the fields, keeping his hands clean, and quietly building a ledger of entitlement. His obedience is not an expression of devotion. It is a calculation of debt. He believes his morality is a currency that can purchase his father's favor. And when that favor is freely handed, to a boy smelling of swine and cheap perfume, the older brother's entire religious economy collapses. The father stands in the darkness of the courtyard. Dust settles around his sandals. The heavy, rhythmic thumping of drums echoes from the stone walls. Torches cast long, flickering shadows across the faces of the two men standing outside the feast. Inside the house, the rebel is wearing the ring of sonship. Outside the house, the obedient heir is wearing the chains of a slave. Listen to the older brother's complaint again. He tells his father, "You never gave me a young goat, that I might celebrate with my friends." Notice who is missing from that celebration. The rebellious kid comes to his senses in a pig pen, wiping the mud from his face, and decides to walk home to a forgiving father. He does not want to feast with his father. He wants to feast with his friends. The older brother is standing inches away from the patriarch of the family, but his heart is in a far country. The younger son said, "Give me my inheritance so I can get away from you." The older son says, "Give me my goat so I can get away from you." Both sons look at the father and see an obstacle. Both sons look at the estate and see a paycheck. One used rebellion to get what he wanted. The other used obedience to get what he wanted. The younger son left the father by walking down a dirt road. The older son leaves the father by refusing to walk through the front door. This is the terrifying reality Jesus is exposing to the Pharisees standing around him in the dust. You do not need to visit a pig pen to become a prodigal. You do not need to squander your wealth on wild living to break a father's heart. You can sit in the synagogue every Sabbath. You can keep your ledger perfectly clean. You can sweat in the fields of morality until your hands bleed. And you can still be standing in the dark, furiously angry at grace